What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Shea Bridge show on Mets Talk with Hayden and Talking Mets with Rob. We're simulcasting on both channels once again for your entertainment. Negatively or positively, we are here to vent and get our frustrations or excitement out, depending on our goddamn New York Mets. The New York Mets swept the Phillies. God, we were feeling good, even though they didn't score a lot of runs. The Mark Cannas, Vogelback actually showed up and remembered how to play baseball for a game or two. And it was good feelings. It wasn't great. Pitching was starting to look good. And we swept the Phillies. The hell with the Philadelphia Phillies. We are better than the Phillies. Not really saying much. But we're going into the Blue Jays series. Very good team. We all know about the power, the lineup that they have. And we get swept by the Toronto Blue Jays. And you see on the screen right there, 0 runs, 1 run. Oh, shit, 4 runs today. Well, New York Mets get swept by the Toronto Blue Jays. And besides today, when Senga didn't have it, the pitching was predominantly pretty damn good. And even the bullpen, for that matter, was pretty good. No matter what you say about the bullpen, the starting pitching, the pitching is probably the least of our worries at this point, considering the fact of the lack of offense this team has shown, and the blame is going around to everybody. Everybody's going to have their specific person that they're going to focus on, but one individual is not going to make a difference if everybody doesn't start clicking at the same time. This team was built, and this is where you can blame Epler. This team is built specifically the lineup to work together as a team, to consistently be as consistent as possible offensively as a lineup. This is not a lineup, even though they've been hitting more home runs over the last 2 weeks, but they've been losing at the same pace, if not more, since they've been hitting more home runs, which everybody wants. So what is it? Is it this team is just a 500 team? Is this team the team that looks like the way they played against the Phillies? Is this team the way they played against the Blue Jays? Or this team is going to be – I can't judge the team. Put it that way. I can't tell if the Mets are going to go into the break into Atlanta and win 2 out of 3. I can have an argument that they can get swept. I can have an argument that they find a way to sweep. You know why? Because going into the Phillies series, I thought they were going to lose 2 out of 3. You know why? Because that's what they made me believe. Going into the Blue Jays series right after the sweep of the Phillies made me feel really good coming into the series. Why? Because the pitching was the problem throughout the first 2 months, and it seemed like they turned it around. Pitching was there. The offense didn't show up. So what is this team? Is this team, luckily, in a terrible National League, still actually has a chance of making the playoffs because it is only 60 games of the season, and we still got a lot of games to go, as we all know. 102 to be exact. So there is a chance. Not because the Mets did anything right. It's because the National League sucks. Good for us. So that's the only positive when it comes to this team, that the National League sucks and gives the Mets a chance to do anything and try to make the playoffs. Probably not a division, since the Braves took 2 out of 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks, coming back home to face us. And now the Mets are back to 5.5 games out of first place. And again, 102 games, can you get buried in the division? Sure, of course you can. But when it comes to this team, the major problem is the 26-man roster and every coach that puts on a Mets uniform, that's in the dugout, in the bullpen, every blame goes to the front office. And when you blame the players, when you blame the front office and the coaches, you also got to blame the guy who runs everything, and that is also Steve Cohen. You got to blame everybody. You can't pick and choose who you don't like, because if that's the case, you will have no coaches, you will have no front office, and Steve Cohen will be holding his money, not being able to do anything. That is the problem with this team. It's everybody. You want to pinpoint Lindor? Great. If Lindor starts hitting and the rest of the team doesn't, we're still not winning. If Alonso starts hitting and nobody else does, we're not winning. If Scherzer's the only one that knows how to pitch and nobody else can pitch, it ain't going to help us. If Robertson's the only bright spot in the bullpen, this team is not going to win. That is the circumstances the Mets have put us as fans in because we like to blame somebody who we probably never liked, who we had we might have a soft spot for Pete Alonso. So a lot of people are not going to blame Pete Alonso because I know the Pete Alonso fan squad, and Hayden's one of them. He kills his favorite player. He kills, and not enough people killed the guy that they appreciate most on this team, right? I am a huge Starlin Marte fan. I was before he was a Met. I kill him every day of the week, but he's been actually playing better. But when it comes down to it, stop pinpointing one individual. Just don't pinpoint Billy Epler and saying he's the problem when he had to spend the money because Sandy Alderson prior had terrible drafts when it came to starting pitching. So we had to spend, an arm and a leg to get a starting rotation, right? Everybody is to blame at this point. Nobody is blameless. And that is the problem I think not enough people are talking about. It's everybody. This is a team game. This is not basketball when you hope LeBron goes for 50 tonight and wins the game all by himself. It's a team game. One person is not going to win it. Aaron Judge can't win a World Series just by himself for the Yankees, clearly, right? No individual one person in baseball is just to blame because if that was the case, every team would know what to do to figure things out. If Buck Showalter is the biggest problem and that's why the Mets are losing, then he should have been fired a month ago and put in whoever the hell you want. Because if he was the real problem, then you should do that. But it's more than once. Everybody's like, oh, just put the kids in the lineup. Well, they're not doing the job either. So you can't send them all down because then it's going to be Escobar, Pham, Canna, and the rest of the Joe Schmoes that nobody wants on this team, right? Everybody who wants Vogelback DFA'd. Do you really think DFA'ing Vogelback is going to change this whole team around? Because Ronnie Mauricio comes up? Great. Ronnie Mauricio can go 3 for 3, hit 3 home runs, and the Mets lose 4-3 because the rest of the lineup does shit. That is the problem with this team. It is every single person from the top of Mount Rushmore, and that is Steve Cohen with all that fucking money. Then it's Billy Epler who gets all that money. And then it's the minions under Epler that says, ooh, pick this guy, get this guy, trade this guy, sign this guy. And then it's the coaching staff who looks at the analytics. And if Buckeye looks at the analytics, fine, whatever. Everybody does it. And then it's the players. We blame the players because they're target number one because we see them play and not get the job done. We saw Lindor hit a ball into the gap and slowly jog out to first base when he should have had a double when the guy missed it, ended up on first base, right? And, it also takes a little bit of luck. The Mets got a lot of luck last year too, right? They got the chances, and it seemed like everything they did, they got lucky on. Also, there's always a little bit of luck winning championships and being great teams. There's always a little bit of luck, a little bit of mistakes that turn in favor of you. Right now, nothing's working. And I'm going to turn it over to Hayden since I blabbered in my mouth for the first 5 minutes of the show. And I appreciate everybody tuning in and probably cursing me out in the comments, most likely. Hayden, 30-30. The Mets look pretty good against the Phillies. I think everybody was excited because the pitching staff looked good. The offense got big hits when they needed them against Philadelphia. And then the Blue Jays series came, and it looked like last week prior to what their losing streak about a week and a half ago, right? It's like 1 week we're happy, 1 week we're pissed off. We're bipolar, and this team is bipolar. So Hayden, what's up? How you doing? Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, what's going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say. Obviously, home game the home stretch started off pretty good. You took 3 out of 3. You swept the Philadelphia Phillies out of town. You like to see that. That's good.
Yeah.
Momentum was high. Morale was high. Listen, when it comes to the Philly series, your offense wasn't, eye-popping. It wasn't elite. It wasn't great. But it got the job done. And it was a game like last year. Score a good amount of runs, and your pitching does 75% of the rest of the job and record outs and get out of jams. And that's what we saw. We saw Senga had a good start against the Phillies. We saw Carrasco. And then who was the third starter?
McGill? No, that was just him. Sorry. No. Scherzer, right?
It was Scherzer.
Those
three guys, quality starts. 1, 2, 3, quality starts. They won. One thing to pay out the offenses, obviously Mark Canha was arguably versing the Phillies. Obviously, no one really else contributed offensively besides Mark Canha. So he obviously gets the tip of the cap. So the Mets did their job during the Phillies series. And then you move into the Blue Jays, you had to win one game to have a winning homestand. And they said, nah, we're not going to do that. Offense fell asleep the first game, could not get guys in scoring position, and yet alone if they did, they couldn't even drive them in. This was an offense that just looked unhittable. You couldn't do anything against Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett collapsed in the Braves series and in the wild card. He's not a good pitcher. Well, last I checked, he went out there every fifth day last year and pitched a majority quality starts.
He was the most consistent.
Very consistent. And then, he collapsed in the Braves series in the wild card, and he's the worst pitcher on the planet. Okay, so did DeGrom and Scherzer. Does that, but they're fine, but not Bassett. But that's besides the point. Billy Epler's an idiot and doesn't know who's good versus who's not. Going to game 2, and, well, once again, they decide how to hit. Vogelbach decides to get a run. And otherwise can't do anything else. Offensively, you fell asleep. And then you have today's game where you score 4 runs, but you still managed to lose. I wish they could have taken those 4 runs and, gave them to yesterday's game or the first game. You would have won. But the one time they're able to score a decent amount of runs, they lose. Kodai Senga, this dude has to pitch like every 6th, 7th day. I mean, I honestly, I dare do I say I regret signing him, but I mean, he can't pitch every 5th day. He can't pitch on the road. You shouldn't be in the MLB then. If you can't pitch on the road and pitch every 5th day that you're supposed to, in April and May, fine. But, June, July, how much time are we giving this guy? Yep. I'm getting very tired. And, Senga's been great at home. This was really his first ugly outing at home of the season.
And also, like you said, his first start with a
short rest. Yeah.
Regular rest.
And, you saw the Phillies series. He was great. The ghost forkball's looking good. He's mixing out with the fastball. He looks good. Getting it, it's unhittable. And then today he just couldn't locate it and just couldn't get any of that stuff working. The walks killed him. Couldn't find the strike zone. And, boom, boom, boom. The Blue Jays offense was beating up on him because of that. And I think when it comes down to Senga, the Mets are going to have to figure out a solution. And I think Hefner is not doing enough because clearly we're not seeing any results. Is Senga gonna, get his ass, killed, every time he's in an away ballpark? Because that's kind of been the case this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't pitch on the road, and he needs 6 days rest, and that's just, that's not right. That the rest of the rotation gets impacted because of him. Correct. But listen, I love what Senga has. He's been great for. I would argue 75%, 80% of his starts, he's looked good. I guess, honestly, right now, I'm really just hoping that Senga can really, really just figure out his solution. Really, the only thing with Senga, I'd say, is command of the strike zone, figure out how to pitch on the road. Like, I don't care about the extra day or 5 days. Tackle those 2 issues first. And I wasn't crazy when I saw that they said Senga was starting today. Would I have rather have seen a Budo or a bullpen game, or overtax the bullpen even more? Honestly, yeah, because but I don't even know, because then you see Senga in Atlanta and he can't even pitch on the road. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, I said it. I still believe the offense is a concern. Everyone's like, oh, my God, we scored 10 runs in, Colorado. Wow. Congratulations. In Colorado, you scored a lot of runs. The Coors Field. Wow, that's terrific. They lost 2 of those games, by the way. So I think right now the root of the problem is still your pitching and your offense. It's a 50-50 effort. And this is average offense, average. You have a couple you have a couple good guys, Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo. And then you have a couple mediocre guys that kill the lineup in Vogelbach and Pham and what other characters we have in there. This is an average lineup. I mean, you look at this pitching staff, and they're getting the job done. I just think right now it bounces off. The pitching's good, but then the offense isn't. The offense is good, then the pitching isn't. I mean, you had one or two games periodically where they both mix, but they can never stay consistent at once, and that's a huge concern. You saw last year, majority of I'd say for all of April through August, the pitching and the offense was consistent. September came, the offense fell asleep, but the pitching held down the fort. Guys like Scherzer, guys like DeGrom, Walker was whatever, Bassett was, and right now this team looks like shit, and I blame everyone. I would boo everyone. I think it starts at the top with Steve Cohen. I think it goes down to Billy Epler. Billy Epler, like we said, brought the same exact lineup in as last year. And I know, Rob, you are going to disagree with me on this, but a lot of the guys last year had career years. A lot of these guys had arguably better years than what they've known for. Mark Canha last year had the second best career of his since 2015. His average, his OBP, and his OPS. All great. Big part to the Mets' success last year, Mark Canha. Great total setter. Starlin Marte was a good power source, a good average guy, and a good on-base machine.
He went right to the back of his baseball card.
Mark. Right.
So it wasn't a career year, so but that one. Yeah, I got you.
So McNeil, obviously, I mean, he was phenomenal. You couldn't get him out last year. And he's playing decent this year. Not great, but he's playable.
His power is completely gone.
Oh, yeah. And
that's
what it is. And I just think a lot of guys played better than what they were expected to last year. Like guys like Alonso hit for a higher average. Lindor hit for a little bit more power. Canha got a higher OBP. Marte, same thing. McNeil, same thing. A lot of guys overachieved in certain categories that really helped this team succeed. Yeah. So maybe overachieved in certain categories is more something you and I could agree on. But that was the biggest thing with last year. Where this year, okay, Marte and Canha are looking good lately, so I'll give them some slack. But to start off this year, those two guys were horrible. Vogelbach, unplayable. Pham, unplayable. And it's very hard to win ball games when you rely way too much on two guys to determine whether the team wins. And those two guys are Pete Alonso and Francisco Lindor. The Mets' philosophy is manufacturing runs, and that does not work in 2023 baseball. In 1967, okay, sure, that works, but it does not work now. You need power, you need line drives, and you need hard contact, hard exit velocity. That is what you need in 2023 baseball, and that is what every other organization is doing. The Rays, the Orioles, the Yankees. But you see Billy Epler and his dumbass friends saying, "Oh, slap the ball, OBP, yeah." Well, yeah, how many guys are they getting on base and leaving them in scoring position? Because, you'll get the good part of the order on base, and then you're, do-nothing hitters to essentially just leave them on. And even some of the good guys lately have not been hitting with runners in scoring position. Hitting with runners in scoring position and 2 outs has been, dead, essentially, for a lot of this season. This team is not hitting with runners in scoring position or 2 outs. And that was a big part to their success last year. We saw so many comebacks, Phillies and Mets, Phillies and Cardinals, so many other more, where they hit in those situations, and they're not. Once you hit 2 outs, okay, you may as well give it a third because they're not doing anything else with it. Maybe they'll get some walk or something, but they're not going to, but you cannot manufacture runs. You need power. And like we said, there are philosophies, getting Nimmo and Marte and McNeil on, and then let Alonso and Lindor drive them in with doubles and home runs. Well, that's great, but if Alonso and Lindor aren't doing anything, you're going to lose. And we could see Lindor is, someone kidnapped him and is wearing his jersey because whoever's taking the field is not an MLB player. Jesus. He's unwatchable. He's not even making any contact. He's striking out, and a lot of the contact has just been, whatever. Pete too. And listen, I'm a big Pete Alonso fan, but I don't defend any player. If you're playing bad, you're going to hear it. Alonso, okay, I'll give him some slack today. He made a nice defensive play, hit a home run to get the Mets to an extent back in the ball game, but he's also been looking a little lost, obviously, swinging out a lot of first pitches, little, pull happy, it seems, trying to swing for the fences, trying to hit the home run ball where he's getting on base, hit the ball, pass the baton. And, trying to hit for home runs when there's no one on base. I'm just like, well, that's great. But yeah, so right now, I'm very upset with this team. I have very little confidence in this team. I don't see much. That's a fair point, but still, you should be playing better. And I know that's a silly thing to say, but there is no sense of urgency from this team. There is limited accountability. No one is holding, I don't see Bach or anyone saying, well, all I hear is defending. And it's getting very, very stressful. And someone needs to light a fire under this team. You saw yesterday's game. Forgot the new manager of the Blue Jays. Whatever his name is, John something. He got ejected yesterday in the 8th inning after some inadequate strike calls. Mm-hmm. He goes out there, he gets ejected, fires his team up. Boom. Vlad gets the winning double down the line. He fired up his team. He hyped up his team. Buck Showalter shows no pulse in the dugout. He sits there, and his press conferences are I can't listen to them anymore. He has trust in his guys. That's a bullshit excuse. No, you don't. Because if you would trust in your guys, you'd have a much better record than 30-30 in 60 games. So
the same lineup that you trust.
Yeah, and these lineups. Buck needs to be banned from these lineups. I'd rather Rob and I make them. I wake up this morning and I see Fam. I'm like, what? Yeah. Listen, you don't want to bat Nimmo, even though there's an off day tomorrow, which confused me. But listen, I don't know if right now Buck is trying to pull these crappy lineups to say, look, Epler, what else do you want me to do? I can't win with that. I can't win with this. I think
that's exactly what
I was thinking at first, but it's just like, there's been a couple decent lineups throughout the mix, but nothing is clicking right now. And I think right now, I wasn't crazy about anti-Buck Showalter, but it's getting very hard to defend Buck Showalter right now. And I think he is on the hot seat. His bullpen management, oh, geez, he's worse this year than what he was last year. And I get it, your bullpen's overtaxed. Part of him, by the way, from what he did in April and May. But, Dominic Leone and today, what excuse is there for that? What excuse is there for Leone coming into the 7th inning today? You have an off day tomorrow. Yesterday, we spoke about it. Robertson should have easily walked flat and faced Kevin Biggio. Robertson is great against lefties. And look at Biggio's slash line. Are you kidding me? So right now, Buck Showalter's bullpen management has been like a ring in my head. I can't understand why Buck Showalter does these things. His bullpen management has been horrible this season. Historic. Horrible. He doesn't know when to pull his starting pitchers too. That's another thing which drives me nuts. The lineups, I don't understand the lineups. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the analytical team. It can't be the analytical team because if it was, then they wouldn't be looking like the way they were now. And he shows no sense of urgency, no accountability, and these post-game shows have just been stupid. Silly responses, arbitrary responses. Hold guys accountable. Stop saying, oh, listen, it happens. It's no. So, yes, I do think Buck Showalter is on the hot seat. And honestly, what's the point? If you're not going to win with him, I'd rather, if you're going to lose with Showalter, I'd rather lose with Chavez, or I'd rather lose with Joe, Bill, or Steve. There's no point in losing with Buck. And I think the only reason that people actually respect Buck or have some confidence is because he was grandfathered into the game. He's a guy who's been a manager for 15, 20 plus years. And that's, I think, is immediately why they won't do anything with him, because I think Cullen in the front office has enough respect for him because of his track record. And I don't care about track records. I don't care about 101 games last year. Last year, how many games you won shouldn't determine and make your job safe for this year, because that is an absolute joke. That should not be a reason for him to keep his job. I don't care about last year. I care about this year. I don't care that they choked the division away. I don't care that they lost in a wild card. I don't care about that. I care about 2023, not last year. You could take some lessons, obviously, you don't want to forget history, else you're doomed to repeat it. Sure. If you want to take those lessons from last year and implement them into this year, that's fine. But Buck Showalter is clueless, and I'm done. I cannot. It's getting very, very hard to defend Buck Showalter right now, and yeah, I honestly say, what difference does it make if you fire him? Because I'd rather lose with him and Chavez. And we've seen Buck Showalter. He's never won at anything. He's always failed. 20 years manager, he's never won a World Series. He's never even gotten into a World Series. So. And I can see why he's never had a successful track record. Billy Epler, he's an idiot. He's a moron. Exile him to Mars. Whatever you want to do with him, send him to the Atlantic Ocean and let him swim in a raft. I don't care. Billy Epler's very clueless. I don't even bother to listen to him. He has faith in this lineup. Yeah, I'm sure you do. He's a moron. He needs to go after this offseason, regardless. If they could come back and win a World Series, I still want him fired. He has no idea what he was doing. He's an idiot. Set this team up for failure, no doubt. Same lineup as last year. Investing in an old rotation. I'm tired of repeating myself. I think Jeremy Hefner should be fired too. I think a big reason that a lot of people defended Hefner the last couple of years was because DeGrom, because you had arguably an elite rotation. Well, you took one of the best rotations of baseball and easily made it arguably one of the worst. Look at the ERA, WHIP, FIP, xFIP, all the expected metrics. And this team's given 80 home runs, which is first in the league. So what's the point of keeping Hefner around? Like I said, I'd rather lose with Steve, Bill, and John and whoever else than lose with Hefner, than lose with Buck. What's the point? I don't think Hefner, everyone's like, oh, Hefner's a great pitching coach. Really? Because last I checked, say what you want about Miguel Castro today, but he's been great with the D-backs so far. You tell me Hefner couldn't see any potential in him? How about Colin Holderman? Why was that happen? But he's having a better year this year than what he did last year for the Mets. Tell me Hefner didn't see anything in him? Bassett. So maybe the problem's Hefner. Maybe the Mets should fire Jeremy Hefner then. I think Hefner needs to go. I'd fire him right now. I'd fire him at 828 or 829. I'd fire him right now and have anyone else take his job, because clearly no one's doing anything. And when it comes to the hitting coach, Chavez last year, I liked his mentality of hitting. The runners in scoring position it was kind of slacked a little bit last year. But I think when it comes down to it right now, having a brain, Jeremy Barnes, kick him out. I have no interest in him. I have no idea what his philosophy is. Let him go. There's no point, because you're not getting any results with him. I'd rather honestly have the demotion of Eric Chavez as the hitting coach. I think if anything, that'd probably be a better demotion. Right now, zero confidence in this team, no accountability. This team looks completely lost. I think this is an absolute unwatchable team. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they got swept in Atlanta. I wouldn't be surprised if they took one or got swept. This team is very lost. And, this team has been really, really slumping since, May 1st, May 2nd. They had a great April. Cool. And I said, mid-May, I'll give them to Memorial Day. Oh, we're about a week past Memorial Day. And I'm not going to sit here and say, let's give it till July. No, I'm not going to do that. I think it is time to panic. Because right now, this is the same lineup that you're going to be dealing with for most of the season. You're not getting any elite pitchers into ground back from the IL. You're getting Quintana, which, I definitely think he could add something, but not a significant amount to really win ball games. And who else are you getting back? Sam Coonrod, what is he going to do? Steven Ridings, okay. Some bullpen support, great. So your overtaxed bullpen? But those three guys aren't going to be a spark to this team. It's not like you're getting like your best hitter back. Look at the Yankees. I mean, they were really struggling, and then they got Judge back. And I mean, when was the last time they lost a game? So I don't have much confidence in this team going ahead. And I say what you want about the NL not being very competitive this year. Not many teams are doing great in the NL, but I think it's very hard to see them making the playoffs with this roster right now. And I have very, very little confidence in this lineup. And I guess to tap it off, I could easily see them getting swept in Atlanta.
Yeah. And, prior to the Rays series, you could turn on the Shea Bridge show, what was it, 2.5 weeks ago, and we probably said the same exact thing going into that Rays series, right?
Yeah.
Probably get swept by the Rays, right? Home, road, it didn't matter. The Mets sucked, right? And I see people talking about Joe Torre never won a World Series. The paper said clueless Joe when he became the Yankees manager after Buck Showalter got fired. And he won multiple world championships and one of the best managers, considered one of the best managers ever because of what he did with the run with the Yankees, right? Bob Brenly, who was basically a nobody, took over for Buck. They won a World Series the next year, right? And the Orioles, all right, they fired Buck. Well, the Orioles didn't work out after Buck, but it comes back to everything that we talked about, right? People don't want to bring up history. That's fine. Don't bring up history. I don't care what they did last year. But here's where I'm going to bring up history because it was only 1 year ago, almost 1 year ago, the trade deadline last year. And we talked about this, Hayden, on the group chat earlier today when the Mets were getting their ass kicked, right? We talked about it. People, and Hayden even called himself a prospect hugger. But even he agreed with me when you have an opportunity, when you have one of the best teams in baseball, and let's make no mistake about it. Last year, at the trade deadline, the Mets were the top 4 teams in baseball, record-wise. When you don't go for it at that time, and you talk about after the trade deadline that you were proud of yourself and your organization for keeping your top 20 prospects when you have a 100-win team in your back pocket that are destined to go deep into the playoffs because that was what everybody was talking about. And you don't make any significant moves. And again, maybe there was none out there, but I also heard the only prospect Epler was willing to give up that was in the top 10 was Mark Vientos, who is probably not in 75%, maybe 80% of any top 10 in baseball, in any other farm system. That's what Epler was trying to give up. The same guy that everybody wants in this lineup every day, that nobody wants, but Met fans want him in the lineup. For what? And here comes back to the same point. When you have a year like the Mets have, which is very few and far between, when you have a team that had the second best record in franchise history, granted, you didn't know what was going to happen at the deadline, but they were trending towards being one of, if not one of the best teams in baseball. Every week, the new power ranking came out. The Mets were probably no less than third. Every week when they came out. Why was there no urgency to win last year when that was your opportunity to do so? Because you were worried about 2023? Well, Billy Epler, Steve Cohen, Mets fans who are prospect huggers, Hayden, you were one of them, but you're starting to agree with me. Why didn't you use some prospects? I'm not saying trading Alvarez and Beatty and Mauricio and all of them for just the one guy. But you tell me you couldn't put Mauricio on the market and nobody would have budged and gave you a bigger bat or one of the best bullpen arms available? I guarantee you that would have happened. Yet, I see people last year that was talking about, oh, you got to worry about the future. Well, here's the future, 2023, nearly the same time as last year when I said you can't prospect hug. You can't be a prospect hugger, and you still need to solidify your roster that is already one of the best teams in baseball, and you don't do nothing except for Vogelback, Ruff, and Givens, and you expect your franchise and the players on that team after the deadline saying, Well, thanks for the help, guys. Come on. Every world championship team, look at the deadlines. And I only go back a couple of years because it matters, because it's NL East teams. The Washington Nationals, look at their deadline. They didn't make huge moves, but they needed little individual moves.
Which team?
Necessities, the Nationals.
When? 19?
2019.
Okay.
They didn't make big moves. They made little moves that was a necessity of them. They got a couple of more bullpen arms because their bullpen was
2015.
Right? Yeah, 15, the Mets. They got that.
I mean, besides Cespedes, I mean, guys like Juan Uribe and Michael Kadire. I mean,
look at the bullpen arms we got in that year. It can be the small moves that matter. And the Braves, 2021. If you told Brave fans that Jorge Soler was going to be the World Series MVP and Eddie Rosario was going to be one of the biggest catalysts in the playoffs for the Braves, they would have laughed in your face. And oh, by the way, Acuna wasn't even on their team. So they didn't even have their best roster, but they got the right guys at the trade deadline. The same thing goes for the Dodgers. I know it was 2020, and I don't really consider that a real championship, but they even made trades in that weird year. Last year, right? What was the team that made the World Series in the National League? The Philadelphia Phillies. They didn't make major moves, but guess what? They got that bullpen arm that they needed. It solidified their bullpen just a little bit, and it made them just a little bit better of a team to go on their run. The San Diego Padres, look at all the moves they made last year, right? It comes back to the same thing. When you have an opportunity and you're one of the best teams in baseball, and you have a chance of winning the World Series, and you only need a little bit of a tweak here and there, and it wouldn't have took you Beatty and Alvarez to do so. And then I have to hear Epler pat himself on the back saying, I'm very happy right after the trade deadline, when at the very last second he got Givens out of nowhere, when you clearly needed another bullpen arm that was actually better than Givens, even though Givens wasn't bad and the bullpen ended up not being a problem. But the other problem we talked about was third base, catcher, and DH last year. Could you not fix one of them or get a bat that at least give me a 270 hitter? That could have helped that lineup when Marte went down. When Marte went down, there was no reinforcements. And that is the biggest problem that I have when people talk about, oh, you got to worry about your future. You got to worry about your future. You know what? What if the Mets would have made – and Haney, you talked about – I think Joe brought it up with J.D. Martinez. Right? What if the Mets would have got J.D. Martinez, even though he was struggling by the deadline and people were concerned about his back? What if the Mets got J.D. Martinez and that Marte injury wouldn't have been as bad because you still had that other bat in the lineup? What if that would have put us over the top and won a World Series? Would you really give it him out 2023? Stop worrying about the future. Too many teams, and they get in trouble for this too much. Right? How long have the Yankees been worrying about the future and not making trades like the Garrett Cole trade, the Verlander trade? Any pitchers over the years trying to get the biggest pitcher. They didn't go after Luis Castillo last year. They got Montas. How did that work out? Right? When you keep on holding on some of your top prospects to get better, when you're clearly the Yankees had an easy path to the World Series, to the ALCS, because the AL was so bad. It was either the Astros or the Yankees. Everybody knew that from June 1st on, right? The same thing that's going for the National League right now. Can you name a great team in the National League right now that you says no doubt they're probably going to be very hard to beat in the playoffs? The Dodgers have no rotation. They're playing well, but if you look at the teams they're facing, if you look at their schedule, they haven't really faced really many good teams, right? The same thing with the Yankees. The Yankees are under 500 against teams that are in the playoffs, quote unquote, right now, right? So the National League is very similar to what the American League was last year. There is no team that should scare you going into a playoff game, except the Yankees, which is their nightmare, the Astros. Other than that, the Yankees knew they get into the playoffs, they can beat any team that they can until they get to the Astros, and then they have to, slay the dragon there. In the Mets case last year, there was three teams. There was the Dodgers, there was the Braves, there were the Mets. Those were the three best teams in the National League, right, record-wise. Dodgers cruised to a division title. Nobody was going to beat the Dodgers, Padres took care of them, no problem. Right? The Braves, right? Braves win the division on a tiebreaker against the Mets, right? All the momentum on their side. They had no chance against the Phillies. The Mets go into the wild card against the Padres. Oh, Mets can beat the Padres. Guess not, right? So 2 teams that had under 90 wins were in the NLCS last year.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the same thing. The Padres and the Phillies both made necessary moves to make their team a little bit better. It doesn't have to be Shohei Ohtani at the deadline. It could be that one big pitcher in that bullpen or that bat, maybe a JD Martinez, if that was the case, or Drury, whatever it was, Josh Bell, whatever. Not just because he didn't play well with Josh Bell didn't play well with the Padres doesn't mean that he wouldn't have played well with the Mets. Maybe if he was in front of Pete Alonso or behind Pete Alonso, maybe it would have helped him a little bit more. Who knows, right? But the whole fact of the matter is, when you don't take that opportunity and you don't take it by the head and you're so concerned about the future, this is what you get in 2023, because the prospect huggers, the same people who want these guys here, who, let's be honest, are not really helping the team right now either. So could they? Absolutely. They could be a big catalyst going down the stretch. Yes. But when you had the opportunity to get the necessary pieces that you needed, and it wasn't a lot in last year's roster, because you didn't have to. The biggest thing when it comes to the hardest thing to get is a great starting pitcher at the deadline. The Mets didn't need that. All they needed was a solid bat in that lineup, and it could have made all the difference in the world. It could have got us one more win in September, and that Brave series would have never mattered at the end of September. When you don't go to extra mile, when the year that you had was so good to help your team out and help that roster out, it ends up being a problem, because you were so concerned about your future, and clearly Epler was when patting himself on the back with holding his prospects. But let's trade Holderman for Vogelback. Great, that's great. So let's get rid of that guy. That was actually helping the team on the roster. When you don't when you don't do nothing, and you worry about the future, and then the same people that were like, well, I wasn't going to trade, Alex Ramirez. I wasn't going to trade Mark Vientos or name another top prospect other than Beatty and Alvarez, which you could have used Mauricio, which I always said was going to be the biggest trade chip. He didn't want to. You're going to tell me you couldn't get a JD Martinez for Ronnie Mauricio if that was the case, right? Nobody wanted to give up Fulmer for Cespedes, right? Who won that trade? Right? Come on, guys. You have to realize when you got an opportunity to win, you go for it. Right? If you think that you're a good organization that drafts players, that shouldn't hurt you. Right? The Mets last year had the #1 overall draft according to all experts during that draft. #1. They were #1 rated in their draft, the Mets. You're going to tell me trading Ronnie Mauricio was going to completely turn over your farm system to shit? I'm sorry. No, it wasn't. So there you go. The New York Mets failed to make their team better when their team probably needed a little bit of a tweak to probably get them over that hump that they would have gotten, most likely. Not saying it wouldn't have happened, but try. What happens if the Mets would have went on a run and won the World Series? Do you really think we would be bitching, moaning, and complaining that this team's 30-30 this year? No, because we can live off of that World Series win. The Phillies are living off their World Series appearance. Are the Phillies fans complaining right now? They're probably pissed off because they got Turner and he's not playing well, and they're not playing well at all. They just got swept by the Mets, who clearly aren't a good team right now, right? I don't hear Philly fans asking for Rob Thompson's head to get cut off and get fired. Why? Because that World Series appearance probably bought the Phillies a year of no problems when it comes to the fan base or anybody getting fired. I don't think you don't hear no Dave Dombrowski firing. You're not hearing Rob Thompson firing or any coaches firing. If the Mets would have made a World Series appearance, we would have been a lot lighter on the demands of this team. Because when teams get a pass, coaches get a pass, GMs get a pass, when you make the attempt and you get somewhere, which was your goal. And that's what the Mets failed on. The Phillies can live off of that World Series appearance for at least a year and say, okay, things didn't work out. Harper was hurt, can't play every day. He's not playing the field. Rhys Hoskins is hurt, right? But they went for it last year. The Mets didn't go for it last year. So that just tells me that the organization, or at least Billy Epler, made Steve Cohen believe that you didn't believe in this team as much as you did. Or you didn't care to believe in this team because you were so concerned about 2025 when every one of your prospects you pray work out. And now Billy Epler could be fired by the end of this year. So he cared about the future. He not even be a part of this team.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess bouncing off of all the things that Rob said, as me, I'm a huge prospect on. I am the biggest prospect hugger probably out there. I love every one of those guys from single A, Port St. Lucie, all the way up to AAA Syracuse. And if you've been on my channel for a decent amount of time, I said Ronnie Mauricio is straight bait. That is one thing Rob and I were very big in agreement on, was Mauricio. We said that, Lindor's the shortstop for the next 10, now 9 years. And that, if the Mets are going to put Mauricio in an outfield spot, well, then trade him. His value is very, very high right now. He just got into AAA, and look at his numbers. If you have the guys like Alvarez, great. You have your catcher. You have guys like Beatty, your third baseman, great. Vientos, your power bat. DH, great. And, it is what it is when it comes down to the whole prospect thing. But I see where Rob's coming from, is that you can't always rely on success from your farm system. And keep in mind, the Mets have not always, had all these elite prospects and turned out to be great. And the same way that a lot of the Mets greats right now. I mean, look at Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo. No one really knew who those guys were in the minor leagues. I mean, I think some people knew of Alonso because he was a Florida Gator. He had some good power. But no one would have told me in 2017, 2018, when he was in AA and AAA, that he was going to make history. I mean, no one would have told me when, McNeil was in AA, AAA, that he would win a batting title and be a 2-time All-Star and Silver Slugger and, hit over 300. Yeah. I mean, no one would have told me when Nimmo was in AA or AAA that he would, be a great OBP guy. They were just, mid prospects. They weren't like number one on, power rankings or any, Yeah. So, listen, it's great to see, your prospects getting loved and having high prospects like Alvarez, number one, and, the MLB farm system. That's great and all. But it comes to the point where you can't always rely on success from your farm system. I think there is always, of course, going to be a lot more. And Steve Cohen said, when it comes to free agency, you can't just rely on free agency the same way you can't just rely on your farm system. You need a good mix. You need a mix from your farm system. You need that homegrown talent, but then you also need to get a couple, foreign outsiders. You need to get a couple of guys from other teams, from other organizations. So, I agree. And this is coming from a prospect hugger. Kill me all you want, but, when it comes down to guys like, from Ronnie Mauricio, listen, if we have the option to get someone that could really, really make a huge and significant impact to this lineup, I'm all for it. Because like Rob said, the future's here. And what are we seeing? Canna's done after this year. Escobar's done after this year.
Yep.
So, you're going to see Beatty being the everyday third baseman.
Well, you're going
to be seeing someone needing to take over left field. Vogelbach's gone after this year, and I don't think the Mets plan on re-signing him. Vientos is going to be that everyday DH. Unless Epler goes out, has a killer offseason. Obviously, you have Marte for the next 2 years, which I think the 4-year contract was a little arbitrary. I would have given him 2.
I think that was the only way to get him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but let's be realistic. I think even Marte knows that if he's 37 years old in his 4th year, he's not going to be elite. Maybe you put Marte in left, okay, so you go after a right fielder. But, they have a couple guys in the Mets farm system who I think could potentially, I think Mike Vassell, I think,
Yeah.
pitcher. He's been doing great in Double-A. I know it's Double-A, so take it with a grain of salt, but he could potentially, I think, in a month or two, maybe he can get a call up to Triple-A. I don't think he'll make his debut this year, but he can definitely be a guy to keep an eye out in spring training to crack the roster in April next year. Alex Ramirez is another candidate. So those are you guys to keep an eye out for. So, but like I said, the future's here, and you have Beatty, you have Vientos, and you can't even say Vientos because he plays like once a week. And that is one thing that I think with Vientos, you send Vientos down because if you're going to play him once a week, let's say he plays 6 games a week. If you're starting him for 2 games as a DH, and then maybe like once he's coming into the game, the 8th inning to pitch hit for Vogelbach or some bum, send him back down to AAA because he's still developing. And I'd rather him get the at-bats, develop in the playing time in AAA every day than rot on the bench. So that is one thing I'm going to say with the arm is just send down Vientos. Nothing with his performance. It's just he's not being played. And what's the point? If he's developing, what's the point of letting him run on the bench? I'd rather him go down to Syracuse and play every single game and continue to get into his groove. So that's what it comes to Vientos. But like I said, the kids are here, and listen, don't get me wrong. They're not gonna have all rookie of the years. They're not all gonna, bat 300, have 30 homers each. That's not gonna be the case. I think out of all of the 3 prospects that are on the roster now, and Beatty, Vientos, and Alvarez, I would say Alvarez has the most upside. He's the best defensively, great defensive catcher. Love the defensive metrics. One of the best defensive catchers in baseball, easily. Offensively, he's so-so. But I think right now, when it comes down to Alvarez's bat, I love his bat, good power. 8 home runs as a catcher. I think that's second most in baseball. And then, you look at it last year, that was unheard of last year. So we'll see what Alvarez Alvarez, I'm fine with. Alvarez is the one guy that I would say when it comes to the baby Mets, the 3 baby Mets, Alvarez is the one guy that I'm not complaining about. Beatty's cooled off. And Vientos is not getting any playing time. I'd send Vientos back down because he's not getting any playing time. Alvarez, continue to let him do what he's doing. He's the number 1 catcher. I think even when Narvaez comes back. Beatty, I think Beatty's in a little bit of a little slump. I think he got out to him a nice start and it's been slumping. Dare do I say you send him down if it continues, but this whole lineup's slumping. So, it is what it is. But I guess to kind of finish up what Rob said, I'm a prospect hugger. But I've said for a while, Mauricio is trade bait. And if he could bring, a significant bat to this lineup now, or maybe a pitcher or whatever, then I'm all for that.
I agree.
So, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, you talked about Canna being gone after this year, Escobar being gone after this year, a couple other guys being gone after this year, right? We talk about this, right? And that's the whole thing. If you're going to bring in Canna, Escobar, Marte, guys that might have really 1 or 2 more years of really, really good years, and, you brought in Scherzer, right? You were clearly going for it. So why not go all the way in 2022 when you had having a great year and you made sign-ins in the offseason that told us that they were going for it over the next year or 2. So why are the prospects so important? Or at least some of them. Every organization has a couple of prospects that they always want to hold on to, that they don't want to trade. It's their no-touch zone. But there's always some prospects that you look on the list and say, okay, these guys, if I need that big person, that player, that bat, that arm, whatever, those are the guys, those are the group I'm going to take it from. Why didn't Billy Apple do that? That's what I don't understand. If you're going to make sign-ins for veteran guys, that told all Met fans that you're going for the next 2 years. The Scherzer signing. Scherzer going to be around 2025 when Ramirez might come up and Beatty might establish himself and Alvarez might establish himself and Vientos might actually look like a player and might actually get playing time by that point, right? If you're going to go with those guys and that was the signing you need because you were going for it, then you're not going for it now at that point. So you half-assed, and JD Martinez just hit a home run. Sorry, it was just funny when I saw that. 14th home run of the season. Damn, Has more than Lindor. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But, listen, it comes back to the same problem. And again, we keep on talking about this year. Nothing's going to change until the big guys hit. But last year, everybody was doing good. And all the veterans that you signed were doing good. So wouldn't you want to fill out the rest of the roster needed and take the prospects that you felt like, okay, I could get rid of them, I don't want to? Besides Beatty and Alvarez, you're going to tell me there wasn't 3 or 4 other guys the Mets could have got rid of and got the roster better? Not saying that would have got them to a World Series or won a World Series, but maybe they would have made a deep run into the NLCS. You would have felt better going into this year than what happened last year. And don't think for a second, as we just blame everybody and their mother on the field, that didn't affect the team. If you don't bring in anything of existence or anything that's worth getting, and if me and Hayden, if Hayden's Pete Alonso, I'm Lindor, we're having great years, and then we're sitting back at the trade deadline eating, some Italian food, right? Eating stuff in our faces and waiting for the big name the Mets are going to get, and then the deadline passes, and we don't get none. You don't think Hayden, Lindor and Alonso were like, wow, damn, that sucks.
They're not getting reinforcements. They need caliber.
Isn't that a kind of that boost of energy you would get, like the Mets got from Cespedes? Don't you think that drained out of them a little bit? Like, damn, our organization didn't even, our front office didn't even care enough or believe enough to, get a couple of guys here and get some reinforcements to better our team. I think that sucks. And I think that's the point that I guess I'm trying to make. And it really has nothing to do with this year, because there's really nothing to talk about this year until everybody starts to figure things out, or hopefully figure things out, because last year there was no excuses. Everybody was performing at their level or better than their level. And you sign people in that offseason in Scherzer, Canna, Marte, right? We got Escobar, all those guys that aren't going to be here by 2025. And the future matters when you're clearly going for it over the next 2 years, which was 2022 and 2023. But at the deadline, you made it seem like we were a rebuilding team that might have got hot. The Mets weren't the Baltimore Orioles who got hot late and looking to make a deal at a deadline. This was a team that had a veteran team that was clearly going for it. If this team was young and they surprised a lot of people, I could say, okay, I could see you not trading your future because this core is young. They just surprised a lot of people. They're going to be good the next couple of years. And then you bring up the rest of your prospects to solidify the rest of your roster. But these are all veteran guys. What are you waiting for? If you're waiting for 2024 or 2025, the guys that you just signed in 2022 offseason are not here now, are not going to be there. So those 2 years making those signings were basically pointless if you weren't going to go all in at a deadline where you were clearly going all in free agency in the offseason. So clearly they half-assed every part of 2022. So they were trying to act like they were going for it in 2022 offseason, but at the deadline, you had your tail between your legs and hid in the corner. When the deadline came to make your team better, that was one of the best teams in baseball. So if you're going to half-ass it in 2022, why do I believe with a mediocre team, what are we, 2 months, a month and a half away from the trade deadline, that if the Mets are, say, 4 games over 500 and they're still in a wild card spot, a couple of games out of the division, I'm going to have to believe that Epler's like, oh, look at this team. They're still in it. I'm going to trade my prospects now to make this team, a 10-game over 500 team? When your team last year was 20 games over 500 and one of the best teams in baseball, but you didn't want to go all out for them, but you're going to go out for a mediocre team that might be 5 games over 500 or 3 games over 500? That don't make no sense. And that's what I don't get. You went all in the offseason in 2022, but you half-assed it at the deadline. Those two don't connect. They don't make sense. So was it Cohen telling Epler to go after everything in 2022 offseason? and then Epler made the decision that I'm not trading my prospects because I want to keep my job? What was it? So you clearly half-assed that situation, and now you end up in 2023 when everybody was concerned about 2023 before 2022 was over. Right in July, people were talking about, oh, what about 2023 and 2024? What about our future? For all we know, a fucking meteor can come and no more baseball, no more life.
I mean, look at Jared Kalanick. I mean, everyone, with the whole Diaz trade. Obviously, we traded away Jared Kalanick, Jay Bruce, a couple other candidates to the Mariners for Cano and Diaz, and Cano was whatever. But I would argue, say what you want about Jared Kelenic, he has 10 home runs, but he doesn't really have anything else besides that. I mean, his strikeouts are incredibly high. Yeah. And I mean, Jared Kelenic was optioned like 10 times last year and the year before. Yeah. And this is really, I think, the longest time Kelenic has been on a major league roster for 3 months. And even Kelenic's been an average, meaty, he has some power, okay. But I mean, everyone's like, oh my God, we lost the best player in baseball to Ed Luis Diaz. Oh my God, Brody, what are we doing? So, and listen, I'm not saying that, all prospects are not meant out to be, but the point is focus on right now. Don't focus on last year. Don't focus on 2027. Don't focus on 2024. Focus on June 4th, 2023 at 9:02 p.m. That is what you need to focus on. And I think when it comes down to it, what's going to go on for the Mets deadline that's being asked? Well, the ball's on Epler's court. Is he going to go out and half-ass it, pull some, bum who has an ex-WOBA of 380 against lefties and hits, 275 against lefties? No. And if Epler does that, then I would just kick him off of I would make him unemployed in a heartbeat. Because right now, and I say this, the Mets deadline determines the rest of the season. And if they don't do anything, I don't trust this lineup as it is right now. Even if Lindor gets hot and Alonso continues to get hot, I don't have confidence in this lineup. And even if they do get hot, first round elimination, no doubt. I don't see this team winning 90 wins. Dare do I even say I could see them winning 85 wins. This is a team that is, listen, you can talk about 2019 second half team. Okay. And, maybe the Mets have, always been historically known to do bad in the second half. So maybe it's reverse psychology. They'll do better in the second half. But at the end of the day, every game matters. And Epler, Buck are throwing a lot of these games in the garbage can when these are winnable games. All 3 of these games, winnable. Winnable, yep. And look at last year. I said so many times last year, what if the Mets won one extra game to give them the division? One extra game. Could have been when the Cubs swept them at Citi Field in September, when the Nationals took 2 or 3 of them from September. Well, what is there this year? You got you lost both series to the Rockies. You got swept by the Tigers. You got swept by the Blue Jays. You lost 2 out of 3 against the Reds. You lost 2 out of 3 against the Nationals twice. This team has gotten swept 3 times already this year. They got swept twice last year in 3-game series. This team didn't lose a series till what, like late May? Yeah. This team has lost, 8-9 series? This is not the same team as what it was last year. And you need to make a move at the deadline. I'm not, even if it's Ohtani, you need to make a move. Because if you go out and give me this bullshit that, Michael Gibbons crap, no. And if that's the case, Epler and Cohen and all the other, have fun watching, the other teams in the playoffs on your couch in October. Yep. And pulling up on Twitter saying, should this player be, should the Mets front office, should a lot of them be unemployed? And I would argue a lot of them should be. It's very frustrating right now with this team, and they need to do something at the deadline. JD Martinez was a guy, like I said, Rob and I, we've been talking, very guy that I was very big on. I know the whole back issues. Okay, sure. But look what he's doing right now. He's 14 home runs. One of the best hitters. So, right now I don't even think this is a playoff team. Is this even a team that could stay above 500? It's 60 games. That's a 2020 season. I wonder, would we have even made it? Would the Mets have made it if they had this record in 2020? Probably. I don't know. Someone wants to tell me, that'd be great. But yeah, you need change because right now and you could tell. I mean, I don't know if Rob, if you were at any of the games the last couple of days, the ballpark doesn't sound happy. Lindor got booed. Lindor, booing is a topic for another day. But Lindor, I mean, for that third strikeout, I was in the other room and I was listening, and there was a roar of boos. And Lindor's been. I'm not even going to bother talking about him because I'm done saying the same thing and wasting my energy. But looking at it, fans are not happy, and they're booing everyone. I mean, Nimmo got booed a couple nights ago. Door's getting booed. I'm a big Pete Alonso fan. I'm a big Brandon Nimmo fan. I'm a big Jeff McNeil fan. I'd boo them. I'd show my disapproval. I'm upset with them.
Yeah.
Play well. Play better, and these slumps, these inconsistencies is going to be the death of this team. Because even if this team, has a good week and then a bad week, the inconsistencies is just it's going to be salt in the wound. It's going to be the death for this team. It's going to determine a lot. So, I'm unbelievably frustrated with how this series went. Even if you won one game from the Blue Jays, I would have
felt better about this homestand.
Yeah, but the fact is that you go 3-0 and then immediately 0-3. That's just impossible. And you're playing 3 games against the Braves. I think the Mets are going to get swept. And I hate to say it, I don't want to say it, but I just don't see any confidence in this lineup going against the Braves. And you could tell me, okay, the Braves are 9-13, in their last 16, okay, or 17, whatever. But at least they're scoring runs. At least they're pitching well, and they're scoring runs. The Mets are just, I mean, I don't know how Austin Riley's been. I know the last time the Mets faced the Braves, Austin Riley was dead, and he was really.
But you know what?
That dude's gonna win MVP, arguably.
Yeah. You know what? And with the possible MVP, Acuna. Listen, when it comes down to it, do we really know what's going to happen in this Braves series? Because we said the same exact thing with the Rays. I don't know what to expect from this team Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in Atlanta. I don't know. Would anybody be shocked if they get swept? No, but I can guarantee you this. Nobody would be shocked if they take 2 out of 3. You know why? Because they've been so inconsistent that we don't know where we're going to get every single day from this team, right? By Tuesday, the Mets have to make a decision because Narvaez is coming off the IL. Is Vogelback finally going to get DFA'd and the Mets are going to carry 3 catchers? Is Nito going to get DFA'd and it's going to be Narvaez and Alvarez? And that might work out. Maybe. Who knows? And they're going to keep Vogelback?
I would really DFA Nito in that case.
I think the Mets are going to carry 3 catchers. You know why? And I'll tell you this. They're going to DFA Vogelback because Epler knows his ass is on fire right now. And let's get rid of Vogelback because the last thing Epler is going to want when he walks into Cohen's office saying everything that the fans wanted, everything that needed to be done that nobody wanted on his team, I got rid of, right? Rough before the season, right? They DFA this guy, DFA that guy, great, right? That's what he's going to do. Because if you carry 3 catchers, Alvarez can be in the lineup every day. When Alvarez can't catch, say if Alvarez he can be you've had that bat in the lineup every single day. You don't have to see him as a catcher, and Narvaez can catch. And Narvaez is the 250 hitter, which is better than Nito. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what happens in the Braves series. I'm gonna go out on the limb here, and I did say this prior to the Rays series, and Hayden, you actually gave me credit for that after the Rays series. I said the Mets were going to take 2 out of 3 against the Rays.
You did.
And they were playing really bad. They were just coming back from a terrible road trip. I said the Mets are going to play well. They're going to win the series against the Rays. Now, I didn't think they were going to go on and go 5-1 on the homestand, but I had that feeling. And I'm coming on here as negative as I've been for, more than an hour now. The New York Mets are going to surprise every Mets fan that just talk that the season is over or that this team is a dead man walking. The New York Mets are going to take 2 out of 3. How they're going to do it, I wouldn't even bet a penny on how they're going to do it. I guarantee you they'll go into game 3 against Strider 1-1 in the series, and they're going to light up Strider. You know why I'm going to say that? Because Strider against the Mets, for some reason, has a mind block. The last time the Mets faced him this year, or the first time this year, the Braves gave him like a 5-run lead early, and he gave it right back. So I don't have no confidence at all in this team right now because they're so inconsistent. Clearly, look at the 6-game homestand, three games sweep, 3 games got swept. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'll probably get destroyed by Brave fans once the stream is over in the comment section. The Mets will take 2 out of 3. And I'm not even going to predict how they're going to do it because I can't even tell you that because the pitcher can be terrible and the Mets finally figure out how to hit. The Braves haven't been good at home this year. They played well against the Diamondbacks, and they took 2 out of 3. But the Braves haven't been, for as bad as the Mets were, the Braves should be up 10 games right now. So, and they're only up 5.5. And maybe that tells you something about the Braves. Maybe they're just not as good or the injuries are catching up to them in their rotation. Who knows? But with that said, Hayden, I'm going to get your final thoughts in a second. In my opinion, I don't know what the Mets are. I can't tell you they're a good team because I'd be lying to you. Are they mediocre? That's a stretch. At this moment, I'm going to call them just below mediocre, where they show flashes and then they look like the worst team in baseball. So I don't know. They can't beat bad teams, but they'll find a way to win. They'll beat the Phillies. They'll beat the Rays. They'll beat the Dodgers in LA. Like, it makes no sense. They don't make no sense. What I predict, who the hell knows? I could be 100% wrong. But I do feel that they can be worse than they were in this homestand. They could be a little bit better. Who knows? But the last couple of things I'm going to say is 2 things. Number 1, everybody's got to play better. And until Lindor and Alonso pick it up, and they better pick it up in this series because you don't want to come back home after that Pirate series and continue to hit like this.
You're going to get
destroyed. And in that case, Hayden, I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'll probably get killed by Brave fans. I already see one in the chat right now. I'm not shocked, right? The Braves are a better team. We all know that. But better teams don't always win series all the time. The best team doesn't always win, and we've seen it in the playoffs. The best teams don't always win. So my conclusion, just get to the fucking playoffs any way you can, and we'll figure it out then. Because somehow, some way, the Padres and Phillies did, and they were 89 and an 87 win team. So my prediction for this, I think the Mets are going to shock the world and figure out a way. It probably won't be pretty to take 2 out of 3 against the Braves. If I get egg on my face, well, that's life of a Mets fan. So, Hayden, final thoughts, my friend.
Yeah, obviously, just a quick preview of this series. Obviously, starting tomorrow, you will have, obviously, tomorrow's an off day, so Tuesday you'll have Carrasco versus Elder. Interesting matchup. Obviously, Carrasco is going to be big. Back-to-back really good starts with Carrasco. He's been looking good. Hopefully, the removal of the bone chips is something he could look into. So you really hope they can figure that out. Game 2, Scherzer and Morton. 2 guys who, Scherzer's 4-0 in his last 4 appearances, so you'd like to see that. Charlie Morton's been having an average year, so we'll see what they can do against him. And then game 3, the final game of the 3-game set, Verlander versus Strider. Verlander has been having some tough luck as a Met so far, so you hope he could finally kind of dominate. His last outing, he did pretty good, only 1 run, so you can't really penalize him too much. And then Strider's who's been having a really, really good year. Biggest thing with Strider is just going deep into games, I would argue. The Braves are, I think they're a pretty good team. I think they're a good lineup. Acuna's having a phenomenal year so far. You look at a couple other guys in Austin Riley, who's been doing a little bit better than what we saw from him a couple weeks ago when they played the Mets. and other guys in their lineup. So we're really just gonna have to see how it goes. Yeah, we're really just gonna have to see how it goes. It's been very frustrating.
Yeah.
This team is just the definition of inconsistent. They'll have a great series and then follow it up by wetting the bed. And I think when it comes to it, this team needs to get consistent. I'm tired of them going flip-flopping and they can't make up their minds. Buck LaRussa is lost. Billy Epler lost. The rest of the coaching staff and front office is lost. They're not on the same page. And if somehow they are, then that's very sad because it doesn't look like it. I pray that this team could figure it out, because if they go 2-3 against the Braves or lose both series, get ready for Citi Field players, because you are going to expect low attendance and a lot of boos. And we see the fans are not happy. The fans are booing everyone. I mean, Nimmo got booed the other day in the pitch clock. I don't know if that was Nimmo or just the pitch clock, but there was some upset at Nimmo. See, Lindor got the most of it. He's been unwatchable, unplayable the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, Alonso got a couple chirps. Everyone's really getting it. Tomas Nido, I mean, that dude's probably going to storm the field. He's unwatchable. But, you hope. This is a lineup, guys you have trust and confidence in. And this is, a lineup of Alonso, Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Alvarez, Escobar, Kana, Marte. I mean, this is a lineup that should play well, but they're not. And they have slumps. Every team has it, but it's on and off, on and off, on and off. Listen, a weak slump, okay. But we're in a month now when this team has been slumping.
Yeah.
So I said Memorial Day is the time to panic. I said that on first or second day of May, and I think it is time to panic. I think it is time that the Mets really start to wonder, and coaching staff and front office, their job titles are on the seat, and as they should be, because they're not doing anything, and they're about to get desperate. And like we say, the last thing you want is a desperate manager or a desperate GM, because that does not work. So yeah, we'll see how it is. I mean, obviously this is not an exciting team. Last year was a very exciting team. I mean, I was so excited to watch every game last year, go home and cancel my plans and watch the game. I don't even bother to do that this year. I mean, the last month, I don't, shutting off the games in the third inning, or, making plans so I don't have to, watch an abysmal game or miserable game. So this is what, Cohen and the Mets wanted. Well, it's not looking too good in year 3. Yeah. And, I was told, 3 to 5 years, if you don't win a World Series, that's a disappointment. Well, only had 1 good year in that 3 good mix so far. Yeah. Fans are booing. Fans are not happy. Get change now. Money doesn't buy championships. It doesn't buy rings. We discussed that. And, you can't have desperate people, because desperate GMs, desperate managers, desperate coaching staffs is not going to resolve anything. So is it time to be concerned? Absolutely. I think it is time to be concerned. Mm-hmm. So, it's really all I got. I apologize. Definitely negative vibes, but what is there to say? I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a slump, they'll snap out of it. Will they? I don't know.
This is just too inconsistent. A slump is a slump. The players are in slumps, but the team is too inconsistent.
Yeah, every other week they're in a slump.
Yeah. Come on. You can go back to every Shea Bridge show since we started. You said
besides April.
Yeah, you said 2 weeks ago, panic mode. The last Shea Bridge show, we were excited because we looked pretty damn good. And then this week again, it's a total 180, because the way the team is completely bipolar. And listen, I don't know what this team's going to be. They can shock. Who knows? They can make a Phillies run. They can make a Nationals run. Who knows? They can do what the Braves did last year, be in bed until June and then pick it up the rest of the way. Maybe not. Probably not. But who knows? And, I know the Brave fans are in the chat, and that's okay. But I see him in the chat, and Rick, I understand your point. And you're talking about me saying, oh, that the Braves should be 10 games up. Shouldn't they be? No? Considering how bad the Mets have been, the Braves gave the Mets basically a freaking bone right now. They were dangling that treat right now. And again, my preseason predictions, I had the Braves winning the division. So I never take away that division title.
The Braves are the much better team, and there's no doubt in it.
But
all
what
around.
does that mean? You know what I'm saying? What does that mean, right? The Braves were the better team in the NL East last year, and the Phillies beat the Braves down, and the Braves beat the Mets down. So who is better? Last year, it was the Braves and the Mets, yet the Phillies made the World Series. So, it doesn't matter. The point of the matter is, and this goes for every team that is in the shithole that the Mets are in right now, which could be a lot worse if the NL East was actually any good, right? The Mets should be 10 games out of the division. They shouldn't even be sniffing a wild card, but they're in quote-unquote striking distance of a playoff spot. As bad as they are, they're still in a position to make a playoff spot 60 games into the season. Got 102 games left. Long way to go. Most likely, the majority of teams in baseball are going to lose another 30 games and win another 30 games. So that's 60 and 60, right? What is the other 42 games that is going to make or break your season? That's it. That's what it's going to come down to. So with that said, make sure you guys subscribe to Hayden's channel, subscribe to my channel. I will be doing live streams during the Brave games, and I know Brave fans are going to love that. So, Hayden, just say a couple more things, and then we'll call it a night, buddy.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of really put a cap in it is just, say it every week. Hopefully this will be the week they turn it around. And, it's not even so much that this team needs to get on a hot streak like the Tampa Bay Rays, but, the roster you have with the money you're spending, you need to be playing better than what you're playing right now. Because right now you're playing, in my opinion, below average to mid. And you should be playing much better than that. And, arguably you're not even cracking a six seed in the playoff spot if the playoffs were to start today. And I know there's plenty of time left. Relax. Okay. But, every game matters. And, I don't see what they have right now competing in any playoff spot.
Yeah.
You need to score runs to win ball games. You need to pitch good outings. I'm not saying you need a quality start every time, but you need good pitching to win championships. So it is what it is. Like I said, hopefully the next Sunday stream will be better. But that's really all I got on my end. Obviously, appreciate, Rob and I, obviously co-hosts on here. Obviously, it's been a rough 60-game stretch, so hopefully they can turn it around. Obviously we are in June, so hopefully they can turn some things around. But that's really all I got on my end. Obviously, I'll put both of our channels. I'll put my channel and Rob's, and then Rob's channel and mine. So if you guys could subscribe to both of ours, that would be great. And yeah, that's otherwise I got. LFGM, smash that like button, turn on the post notifications. And yeah, otherwise I'll be live on my channel probably tomorrow or Tuesday. And yeah, I guess that's really all I got. Hopefully they can turn it around. LFGM, let's go Mets.
Absolutely, man. So the Mets ended up 3-3 on the homestand when it started off so good, 30-30 record. Mets got, as you see on your screen, the next three against the Atlanta Braves starting on Tuesday, and then head to Pittsburgh 4-3 against the Pirates. So with that said, everybody have a great night. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Keep on coming back for more on both of our channels. Everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets. I'll see you next time, guys. Have a great night.
Let's go Mets, guys.
We're gonna take it home. Let's go. Do it. Make it happen. Where there's a middleman, you'll find a Mets fan. Let's go. This is a Mets year for all your Mets here.